A very warm welcome to the students of class 7. Today we are in the grammar classroom and the topic that we are going to deal with today is transitive and intransitive verbs. Now previously we had learnt about the parts of speech. We had learnt about the 8 parts of speech. One of the parts of speech is the verb. Alright? We know it very well that the verb is an indispensable part of speech in the sentence. It is very much important. It bridges the gap between the other parts of speech. Okay, when a verb is there in the sentence, it gives a meaning and a purpose to the sentence. How? Because the verb always determines if the object or the subject is in a kind of state or being or whatever action it is performing. Okay, so that is the role of the verb in a sentence. It determines the state or being of the subject, okay, or it states some sort of action that the subject is doing and what the object is receiving. Now, what we have to remember in this case while studying about transitive and intransitive verb is that we are taking into consideration, just now what have I talked about is the subject and object. Alright. Now these two words play a big function in understanding transitive and intransitive verbs. So we already know that the subject is associated, subject and the object together is associated with a noun. Okay. So a noun. A noun is incomplete without the verb, so definitely the verb has to be there. Now, the verb can be either transitive or intransitive. Okay, there is another sort of verb, I'll come to that. So, a verb has, it can be three types, okay. Transitive, intransitive, or incomplete. Okay, this is based on the work that it does. Alright, now see, based on the function of the verb. Okay, so what we have to remember, the object of any sentence is the one affected by the action carried out by the verb. Now, subject is the doer. Okay, so the subject has to be there. It's the doer of the action, and the object is the receiver. Object is the one that is affected by the verb. So, if I say that the object is being affected by the verb, then I mean that that something is being happening. The subject is doing something and the object is receiving it. Object is getting affected. We have to remember this. Alright. For example, if I say the boy likes the dog. Here the boy is the subject, likes is the verb, and dog is the object. So the subject does a work. What is the work? What is the action that is being done by the subject? It's likes. It's liking something. Okay. So the work is being done over here. Okay. Doer. And here the dog is the receiver. Receiver of this action likes. The dog is being liked by the boy. Okay. So then we can say that the object is being affected by the subject. Whatever the subject is doing, the object is getting affected by it. Alright. Now, many times it may happen, all verbs, they do not require objects to complete its meaning. Okay. For example, in this sentence, here, this verb, the boy likes, needs an object to complete its meaning. Okay, so the object has been affected by it. Now in another case, if you see this sentence, okay, in this sentence too, if I say I threw the rock. What did I throw? Something has to be there, an object has to be there in order to complete the meaning of this verb threw. So here as well, the object is being affected by the subject. So in another case, what happens is, for example, if I say, I cried. Now in another case, what do we see? If I read this sentence, this makes complete sense. I cried. Now this verb over here, cried, it does not need any object to complete its meaning. It's self-sufficient. Alright, it's not dependable on any other noun or object to make sense. It makes sense. I cried, which means the person who's talking about himself or herself has cried. Like in this one, I threw, it will have to mean that you threw something. What did you throw? What was it? Okay, we will ask questions like these. Now, in this case, an object is needed to complete the meaning of this verb. But here, you don't need any object to complete the meaning. Now, here we come to the definition of the kinds of verbs that I have talked about. Now, verbs that require an object to complete the meaning are known as transitive verbs. Simply because the action that the subject is doing is being transferred to the object. This is the subject, this is the object. The action that the subject is doing is transferred to the object, the receiver. This object in these two cases is being affected by whatever the action the subject is doing. So that's why they are known as transitive verbs. And here, verbs that do not require any object to complete its meaning, it is self-sufficient in itself. It is known as intransitive. Intransitive verbs. Alright. Because the action is not being transferred, there are no objects to be affected by the work. So, intransitive verbs. Okay, so what do we understand over here? In case of transitive verbs, the action always passes on. Okay, action, you will remember this, passes on to the object. Okay, from the subject to the object. Okay, for example, I may give you more examples of this. Now we shall look towards the examples of transitive verbs. Okay, so if I say the thief broke the window. So this is a transitive verb. How? Because the thief broke. What did he break? So we always have to ask the question what or whom in case of transitive verbs. So what or whom. Okay, always to be asked. So what? The window. So this is a transitive verb. In the same manner, if I say the headmaster summoned the prefects. Okay, summoned, called the prefects, which means the prefects were affected, means they were called and by the headmaster. Okay, so we will ask headmaster summoned whom? The student, the prefects. So we have to answer that question. So when we have to answer or ask a question what or whom and we get the answer, then it is a transitive verb. Alright. Now we shall look at the details more about the transitive verbs. Now some transitive verbs can have two objects. Okay, so we have to remember some transitive verbs, they have two objects. One is direct, the other indirect. Okay, for example, my grandparents gave me a hug on my birthday. The child told us the truth. Let me write this down. Let me write this sentence down for you as example. The child told us the truth. Now see, we have one object over here, which is the subject over here, which is the child. Told over here is the verb. And now comes the two object part. There are two objects. Okay, this is also an object, this is also an object. Now how are we to determine? Now directly what do we say? The child told the truth. The truth was told. Alright, this is what it means. The truth was told. So this becomes the direct object. Okay. Even though if we say the child told us, what did the child say? Still we are in need of another object, right? So if I say the child told the truth, this makes complete sense. The one object that makes complete sense when added to the verb is the direct object. And this is just to be specific. Alright, to specify. Okay, how, to whom did he say? You might answer that, you might not answer that. That might be in a sentence, that might not be in a sentence. It doesn't matter. Okay, so here when an extra object is there only to be specific regarding the direct object, then that is the indirect one. Alright, so usually the indirect object, usually this is the case that the indirect object, it comes before the direct object. Usually, there might be rare cases also. Okay, so this comes before the direct object. Okay, for example, this is clear to you that this is how it comes before the direct object. Okay, usually this is the case. But if we have to place the indirect object after the direct object, okay, like if we have to bring this direct object before and then we have to place the indirect object after, what do? We add in a preposition. In this case, the preposition will be to. The child told the truth, which is the direct object, to us, which is the indirect object. Okay, so a preposition has to come in between. It can be any preposition. In this case, it is to, because we use preposition to with this verb, told to. Okay, we cannot say told for. Okay, we say told to or said to, however, told us. Usually we don't have told to, or we can say the child said the truth to us, told the truth to us, fine. Okay, that we can take. So that is where we have to inverse the sequence. Okay, so with this, this is the end of our transitive verb section. Now we are going to move on to what do we understand by the intransitive verbs. I just use this space, I'll let this space be over here and I'm going to just use the space that is left in order to explain. Okay, so here I'm going to explain the intransitive verb. There is not much to explain, though I've already explained the definition, okay, for intransitive verbs. Now, for intransitive verbs, you require no objects. That's why I said you don't need much explanation for this. No objects are required because these are self-sufficient verbs. Okay, they are self-sufficient verbs. Alright, for example, if I say Lena arrived early this morning. Okay, just let me put this over here. Lena arrived early this morning. Even though you might feel there is a noun over here, there is an object. Okay, it does not qualify as an object because this is not being affected. Okay, and morning over here, it does not even qualify as a noun. Okay, this is an adverb over here. Early this morning. Okay, so Lena arrived early this morning. Okay, early is over here, the adverb. Okay, so this is demonstrating this. And for arrived, Lena arrived early this morning. So this is complete in itself. It does not need any object to complete its meaning. Okay. So this is an intransitive verb. In the same manner, the fire burned all night. Okay, all night, it's an adverb over here. It's when did it burn? All night. Okay, so fire burnt. So burned over here is the intransitive verb because there are no objects present over here, and it doesn't need to transfer. The action doesn't need to transfer. It's self-sufficient in itself. Okay, so here we end with our concept of transitive and intransitive verbs, but we are not yet done with the chapter, because I'm going to explain to you in the next video about verbs with incomplete predication. Remember, I told you about the three kinds of verbs according to the functions: transitive, intransitive, and incomplete verbs. So in my next class, we are going to talk about the incomplete verbs with respect to transitive and intransitive also. Okay, so how transitive and intransitive verb, they also have a role to play in the incomplete predication of the verbs. All right. So this is where we end this video, and the practice worksheet will be given to you. Okay, so I'll have two worksheets for this because two videos. I'll have two worksheets for this chapter. I'm going to name that as practice worksheet 8, because before that parts of speech will be there. So 8, it will be 8A, because this will be a fun video, and other will be 8B. That will come with the next video. All right. So thank you, children. Thank you for listening. I hope you all study well. Please go through the video thoroughly and also the exercises. Thank you.